right? So people that are searching for your service, your product, your whatever the hell you sell widget. And
Yep.
Essentially, how do you know that, okay, the next step is now we need to get more into top of funnel? Because the philosophy that we've, tend to have is start with what works, capture the already existing demand. Once that's captured, start to branch up and go up the funnel more and more, because that's going to be harder traffic to convert. So yeah, let's jump right into it first. And then once we get kind of a general overview after the first, maybe like, half session or whatever the case would be, maybe, whenever we're done rabbit holing, we can go into specific questions and then rabbit hole in that as well too. So this is going to be a very in-depth, I guess you can say, live. So
yep.
sweet.
All right.
How's that sound?
I think let's do it. I think
Cool.
we're going to cover Google first, because I think Google's going to be probably a little bit easier for demand capture, because Meta does more demand generation. Talking about demand capture, you can talk about demand capture in two different categories. You can talk about them by brand and non-brand. Now, they both started originally as non-brand, but we treat them differently, obviously, inside of Google, or we should be. And we have to use a bunch of different columns to identify where we're overspending and underspending. There is a massive common misconception over the term search impression share. And Google is a genius at tricking the entire industry, because search impression share is relative. It's also, it is eligible, or it has an eligibility factor to it. So I'm just going to start sharing screen, because the deep dives are going to be a little bit long, a little bit drawn out, but we're going to cover a lot of information that maybe a lot of this you've not thought of or known before. So as an example, I got 2 brand campaigns showing up just from this company here, American Tall. I'm just going over last week. And I do this because this one has scaled up from $30 to $1,100. It didn't scale up. We started the day before. So you're seeing like basically nothing to something. And then this one here, you see the brand search also spend like $193 less, but then still make 38 grand, which again is usually counterintuitive. Because you're like, oh man, this is Memorial Day. We have a Memorial Day sale. I'm like, so do I. And I can still spend, $193 less to make $38,000 more, which gives you a 3,000 ROAS. So, and that's what we're talking about today, is kind of demand capture. We'll talk about the metrics to measure, the bidding strategies, and how to know and how to test. We'll talk about all that stuff. So I'm setting the stage to two different campaigns, so that you can kind of understand this is brand. This is the easiest demand capture that there could possibly be. And the first lesson that I wanted to kind of share, just as a general rule of thumb, because I do like often to kind of give rules and SOPs when I can. A standard operating procedure of mine when running brand campaigns, especially when talking about demand capture, is your brand shopping. I've never had it where brand shopping as be brand search, ever. They both do very, very well, but brand shopping always kind of struggles to get over like a conversion rate that search can, or even, ROAS that search can. So just by default, if you're going to run a brand shopping and a brand search, make sure that your shopping is always going to be less than brand search. I just think it's very strange, but if you're Googling like American Tall as an example, it's like, I have this all on sale, and people are still like, nope, I don't want any of that. I'm going to go right down here and click that. I'm like, well, okay, whatever. But for some reason, I think this is where people are like, I don't like any of those. I want to come here for shirts. And so we're seeing all pants, and they're just skipping that and go right to the link. So those two do seem correlated. All right. So now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the metrics. If you go into the columns and you look at competitive metrics, these are the ones that I use. Now, the reason why I use them is to understand eligibility and how much Google is targeting and extracting data from known versus unknown audiences. That means eligibility based on my bidding strategy and budgets. So what's interesting is when you look at something like this, where you see average search impression share, we have lost 4% search impression share. Now, what does that mean? It means that when people were Googling my name on the homepage, I lost 4% of what I was eligible for. Now, when you lose eligibility at a 0.56% of interactions, when we look at our impressions up 759, a lot of people say, I got 759 more impressions. I made 6% more impressions. How did I lose 4% search impression share? That doesn't equate. Math doesn't math. If I made a better search impression share, that's why I have more impressions, because I have more impression share. You're like, yes, you're right. However, search impression share is not search impression share. Is in the term of market penetration. It's not search impression share of market penetration. It's search impression share on eligibility. The impressions you received on Google search sites divided by the estimate number of impressions you were eligible to receive. If you crank up your tROAS goal from 50 to 700, massive
Audiences
crank up.
changes. Yeah.
Yep. Your eligibility drops, but your penetration of said dropped eligibility is more. So we're going to use this
quick metaphor
example.
to that.
Not clock. Jesus, I clicked clock. Yeah, go ahead.
The metaphor that I like with this is it's like you're fishing in a pond and your impressions might go up. Therefore, you're casting out more nets, but maybe the pond is now bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you shrunk your the size of your pole, and now you can only go so deep, and that would be your budget reducing.
Yeah.
You still may have gotten more impressions though. So it's really strange.
Gotcha.
The search impression share, you're measuring it by, let's say, two circles. Green equals eligibility. I had to think about how to spell that for a second. Red is
maybe potential.
Yeah, this would be market share. So green is eligibility, red is market share. If your current penetration of your eligibility is set at this level here, because your bids, your budgets, your level of competitiveness, you're getting 80% what you're eligible for. So you got 80% eligibility. Now, what this means is that Google says, hey, for your budget, for your bids, you can get everything in the green. Now, some days you'll be a little higher, some days you'll be a little lower, but you're eligible for the green. What you could have received is red. But this big red circle, but you're getting penetration in your green. You're like, you know what? I'm going to cut my budget in half. And they said, excellent. Now you cut your budget in half, and the green and the red have both shrunk at the same time. Now, it just does this. So you still actually could have the same amount of search impression share, because what you were eligible for has shrunk because that was your budget. What you were able to achieve because of your bids is the same percentile. So you now have 50 people instead of 100, but search impression share didn't change. That's how I got more impressions, but less search impression share. More impressions and less search impression share means that it actually grew, but we didn't increase our bids, increase our bids or our budget. So the green actually increased, but our red inside of it actually started to decrease down. I don't know how to do that. It actually started to decrease down. So
Gotcha.
The pie was getting bigger. You're eligible for more. Give me more budgets. Your eligibility went down because you didn't give me more ad spend. There was more demand during the weekend for Memorial Day. I could have gotten you more sales, but you didn't give me more budget. So your eligibility went down. The percent you did get more, but you could have gotten a lot more, so your eligibility went. So we're starting to see now on eligibility. The problem is Google gets to determine that. And so if you're like, hey, I have a tROAS of 300%, and I'll stop sharing here. I have tROAS set at 300%, says good, you're eligible for 100 people. How many could I have gotten? You could have gotten 1,000. Okay, so with that tROAS, I only get 100. Yes. what you're looking for is the difference between search impression share and click share. That will now kind of identify the levels of eligibility that you have in that campaign. So here's what I mean by that. The search impression share is good. This is based on eligibility. Your bids, your budgets, your targetings, your tROAS goal, if you're doing new customers or not, all that stuff affects what you're eligible for. So eligible says, I have 1 million people. And you're like, yes, but I want this keyword with this bid, with this budget, blah, blah, blah. Okay, then out of 1 million people, you get 300. And what did I get? You got 270 of them. Okay, so that's a 90% search impression share. Most people think 90% search impression share means I got 900,000 out of 1 million. No, it means that you got the 90 out of 100 that you were
based on what you set for targeting. Yeah. Which
exactly.
lake
Now,
you decided to go fish in.
Right, exactly. Now here's my click share. So my search impression share is 76. My click share would tell me what I'm actually eligible for. I'm getting 75. Okay. So I actually have a little bit more room to grow. And you're like, well, if you're already getting 76% of all the people you're eligible for and click share is 75, click share is the clicks you received on search network divided by the estimate number of clicks that you could have received. Much different. This is could have received. That's much different than what you were eligible to receive. Big distinction there. One is you craft the ecosystem, which is eligibility. If I spend $1 billion, my search press share is going to go up because I'm eligible for, but I might have only hit, now 90 people out of 100 instead of the 1 million I could have received.
Or drop your tROAS goals.
Yeah. And actually, if I drop my tROAS goals, sometimes I can actually get a search impression share lower because if I drop my tROAS goals, it spikes up my CPC, which means I have less users per day. And so my budget runs out earlier. My search impression share actually dropped. I'm eligible for more. I received less because I spent more on the same amount of people without having to increase my budget, which means I've received less clicks. So I could actually drop my tROAS and lose search impression share. I'm spending more on the people that I'm eligible for, which means if I can buy 100 people usually and I double my budget, now I can buy 50. I cut out half my search impression share because that's what I was eligible for. This big click share is over here saying, hey, idiot, get out of the bubble. And that's kind of what I look at is the reason why I use a low tROAS or the reason why I use a very high TCPA is because I want to show up for the maximum amount of people that I'm eligible for, which is, are you alive on Wednesday? That's what I want. I want people looking for my brand. If you have a pulse and went to the keyboard and typed something, that's all I want. So my tROAS and my TCPA targets are very, very loosely restricted because if I say, hey, Google, I want people that are bidding on this keyword. It's like, now do you want only the buyers or everyone that bid on the keyword? I'm like, well, it's my brand name, damn it. I want everybody. So my eligibility should look close to my click share. My click share says you're capturing 75% of every single person ever. And my eligibility is that. So the closer you can get your search impression share and your click share to kind of match, the more often you're going to have a higher amount of market penetration. Now, you will have a time where if I just went maximize conversions on both these bad boys, which is not possible in shopping, we know that, but just go with me on here. If I didn't set any restrictions like a tROAS target, this tROAS target here is set to, let me just pause camera, this will help. It's set to 500%. That is a fairly high restriction. If you think about just a tROAS, 500% is very aggressive. That is a high tROAS. That's not a low tROAS, but it's brand. Now you say, well, yes, it is a very high restriction, and I'm asking Google to give me at least 500% of my money back. Now, what has it done? It has given me a 3,325. So while quote unquote, yes, it's restrictive at a very low percentile compared to the goal. So that 500% that it needs to stay over is pushing out some of my eligibility. That is correct. By giving it a 500% tROAS goal, that is keeping my search impression share from reaching about 85%, which is typically where search impression share maxes out. So just know that your search impression share will not go to 100 ever. And I'll explain that here in a moment. But I do have a restriction on there. And my restriction, actually, you can see 76. I used to have 79% eligibility of my 76% click share. So if this was out of 100, I can match for 76 out of 100 people that are total. And of those 76 out of 100 that I can match for, I got 80% of those 76. So I probably reached 60 out of the 100. That's how you equate this. The only reason why it's not 100 out of 100 is because I do have a tROAS, and I'm not going to allow Google just to take this thing and spike it up to $4 to gain 10% of a metric no one fucking cares about.
Yeah.
But that's a good way of kind of identifying this. Now, when we start to look at, let's do this here. Search impression share. All right. So I made that point in eligibility. Oh, I lost my place. What I was going to be, I said, I'll go back to this here. Where was that?
Impression share, I'm not sure. The 500% tROAS goal.
Yeah, I had the 500% tROAS.
For restrictions. That's okay.
Yes.
We can pivot if we need to, because I think I have a lot of things that'll add on to this, because I think one of the things when it comes to when people look at demand, like you said earlier, how it was like, Memorial Day, demand changes, therefore search impression share changes and click share changes. So you have to follow that, but you also want to like not rely on that per se, because the opposite can happen too, where it drops and you're trying to force it, but the reality is the demand is just no longer there at that period of time.
Right.
So what would be a signal of like the demand is not there anymore? Let's like focus on like something else. Like let's focus on top funnel content, whatever the case is, when it pertains to Google.
Okay. So we're looking at top of funnel. So now if we wanted to do kind of like outbound top of funnel, or we're talking about inbound top of funnel?
Oh, no, sorry. I mean, like, what would be the signal in the platform that you're looking at right now that would say, okay, we're maxed out on demand. We have to focus on something else. Is it like you just showed, like click share and search impression share? Like what would be like a signal for that?
Yep. So I'm going to hop over to another account that I am maxed out in I am trying to spend more than the demand is there. And that is your search lost IS by budget. That is probably one of the biggest indicators that you've run out of money to spend on, or you've run out of people to spend money on. As an example, last 7 days, I'm trying to spend $400 a day. Okay. So with my cost being 100, obviously I'm not spending the 2,800 I'm trying to spend. I spent $100 of it. Now my CPC is $50. So I'm not bidding too low. I'm actually trying to bid $80. And sometimes
I'll go as aggressive as possible kind of thing.
Stupid aggressive on CPC, stupid aggressive on daily ad spend compared to what I'm getting, which is 2. So my search impression share, why the hell is that not 100%? That was the point before that I was trying to make. The search impression share not being 100% is because you have close variance. So close variance are going to skew your click share and your search impression share down. But is it actually affecting you, which is what we'll cover on search lost IS by budget, which is what we'll touch upon next. The click share and search impression share means that I have keywords and search terms that I am showing up for that I wasn't showing up for before, like X-ray repair or equipment repair. And then you got who fixes X-ray machines. Now, this scenario is I have an exact matching to a close variant that is matched to something that is, it has something to do with the keyword, but is not the keyword. X-ray equipment repair. I have X-ray. I don't have equipment. I don't have repair. So do I truly think that these 2 impressions were only 2 impressions that I could have received on that search term? No, it is not.
Okay.
Because if I were to bid on who fixes X-ray machines, I would have a lot more than 2 impressions. I bid on X-ray equipment repair. It changed it, and it will not change it for every single search, but it changed it 2 times for this search.
Got it. So it's offsetting the ratio.
Yeah. Yeah. But now when I say X-ray service companies and I get something like X-ray companies, that's closer matched. That one got 6.
Got it.
So when it changes the search term, you're not obviously going to get 100% of that changed search term. You're going to say, hey, I'm getting what you want, but I can also get some of these. And so you can kind of see all of the X-ray repair company keywords here. These all are close variants. You can kind of see the ending of the word variant here. That just means close variant. That also means that none of these were any one of these. They're close, but they are not them.
Yeah.
Now, what this means, though, for demand capture is, should I and could I add all of these keywords to my campaign? Yes. I would increase my impressions. Yes. I would increase my impression share. Yes. I would increase my click share. Yes. Now, is there many more out there? Probably not. What do you mean? Well, if I look at my search lost impression share by budget, how often my ad didn't show, didn't get clicked on, how often my ad didn't show, which means I didn't impress anybody due to not having enough budget, that's at 0. Now, I am missing search lost absolute top impression share by rank, which means am I not bidding enough per keyword? That I am losing some, 18%, which is driving that down here. But what's funny is you're not seeing 18% here, 18% here, because this is ranking number 1. This is ranking top.
Gotcha.
And then impression share is ranking all first page.
Yeah.
So you have to have absolute top IS, which is number 1. Top IS is number 1 through 4, and search impression share, which is 1 through 8, the top 4 and the bottom 4. So when you see that you're not losing any search lost impression share, which is this bad boy over here, lost by budget, that's good. Am I losing any search lost top IS by budget? No. My search lost absolute top by budget? No. So I can't get any more first page, top of page, number 1. I am not losing it anything because of budget, which is why I'm not spending. I am losing some based on rank. And I can see that actually because my $80 CPC was met at $79.80, which means it probably could have gone up to $120. Now, what would I capture? Probably 1 or 2 more impressions, maybe a click, maybe not.
Yeah, it's the point of diminishing returns is pretty drastic right there.
Yeah, but you can still see that I'm in the 60 percentile of click share.
Yeah.
Which is like, hey, if 67%, oh shit. Well,
it's a big jump though.
Well, let me
CPCs.
Well, it's a big jump in CPC, but for what? So if my click share is 67%, let's just use round numbers. Let's say it's 33, 66, 99, 1, 2, and 3. This means that if I spike up my spend, I can probably gain the other 33%, which would increase that by how much?
Yeah.
1.
Not even, barely.
So if 2 goes to 3, that would go from 66 to 100 because my click share was eligible for 67% of everything I could have received on clicks, which means I missed 1 click. Yeah. Oh no!
It's all ratio, yeah.
Exactly. Now, we have to, if we're looking at market penetration and we're looking at demand capture, even brand or non-brand, you have to look at this here. This is your auction insights. Make sure that you switch it from search or shopping, depending upon what you're doing. And also even make sure to select the right campaign because each campaign is going to be wildly different, including the top line. So my opinion is never just look at like all campaigns and then just look at everything. Look at the individual ones because brand, non-brand, these are all going to look way different. But I do want to demystify some other things here because I see this is a constant question that I even get on LinkedIn all the time where it's like, oh man, Pronovo has got 78. I'm 97. They're at 28. I'm 91. Oh no. This is what people usually jump into immediately. Now, what you have to look at is 2 more extremely more important metrics before you jump into the oh no's. And this is non-brand or brand included, which is this little bad boy here called overlap rate. And then you also have to look at the impression share rate. Then you're actually going to find out that there is a large filtration that actually happens before you would need to panic. So what this means is that let's say 100 people searched, okay? And 100 people searched, you got 87 out of 100 up there, and then they got 17 out of 100 here. So that's kind of where that is splitting out that search impression share. We got 87, they got 17. This is first page impression. That's all this stands for. Out of 100.
So it doesn't equal 100. Oh, man.
Yeah, exactly. And out of 100 searches, they're showing up 17 out of 100. Okay, so they're with you 17% of the time. Cool. Now, of the 17% of the time, how much do we overlap with our keywords? That's also 17%. So you got the 17% of the 17%. When they're on the first page with you, your overlap by keyword is only 17%. Okay. So 17% of the time of 17% of the time.
Yeah.
They will then be at the top of page rate 78% of the time, which means the first through 4. So what's 17% of 17%? Just do something. 17% of 17%. 2. So 17%. Let's just do 17% of 17. You got 2.89. So here's what happened. Dear Lord, everybody. They've reached 78% top of the page for less than 3 out of 100 people.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this 78% doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
If you said 78% parentheses 3 out of 100 searches, I would never look at that number. So when you're looking about market penetration and competitive, you have to talk about competitiveness as well, because that's also due to eligibility and what your impression share is and what your click share is. You can kind of see, okay, if my tighter restrictions, I'm eligible for, like, I'm getting only 30% of my click share, but I'm hitting 80% of my target impression share. That means that I'm way too restrictive and I'm not branching out. So let me see if I can find one of those. I'm just gonna, you know what? This one might be a good one if he's running ads, because he runs some pretty tight CPAs. He doesn't run them all the time just because it's seasonal, because it's Obamacare. So sometimes he ramps it up, then has pause and that kind of stuff. So this one may not be a good one to look at, but
it's following seasonal demand though. So
yeah, let's just do like last 30 days. Let's just do at least, let's go here. I think that's when it was running to. There we go.
Also, if we can, after this, jump over to Meta and maybe cover the transition of what would be sort of a way to track top of funnel with this. So maybe we'll jump into that after this. I just want to make sure we get through everything in our hour live.
Yep. So here's this is a good one. He's running was running max conversions at the time. I don't know what it was running before, but this is just an example where it's like, hey, you have less than 10% of your overall people you could have received clicks from. The people that you're eligible for is something, smaller than that total amount that represents, and you're getting 13% market penetration into that. So you can see that this is really, very, very little market penetration.
Yeah.
And so that's what that means, is that this could be 1% click share, honestly, and you're getting 13% of the 1% total.